Senator John Thune is here in the studio with us. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You heard Karine Jean-Pierre say a couple of minutes ago that it's up to Congress to come up with the tools to prevent another SVB going on in the future. And of course, we all remember back to the Lehman fiasco of 2007, 2008. You're in Congress. You've got the power to do this. What do you think should happen?
Well, first off, I think the question has to be asked, and they will have these guys in front of the appropriate committees in the Congress, the Senate Banking Committee. What went wrong? Why did the regulators not see this? I mean, this seems to me like an epic failure of the job that they have to supervise the banks. And if you saw a bank loading up its balance sheet with securities that were losing value, and that you had all these unrealized losses on bank balance sheets, you think you would probably, put up a red flag there. And it seems like they completely missed it. So I think we have to find out why the regulators failed, why they missed it.
So why do you think they failed?
Well, I think part of it, I asked Yellen the question this morning, and I think we need to ask the FDIC and the Fed when they come in front of the Senate Banking Committee. Partly is, are they back to work? At the pandemic, there are a lot of government employees who have been staying home, and this is the kind of job that you kind of have to be on site to get it done. And she didn't have a really good answer. I asked her whether the pandemic was over and how much of their workforce is actually back in the office. But I think those are relevant questions. And I'm anxious to hear the answers as to why what appears to be very obvious, even to people who are somewhat, laymen when it comes to these issues, that this was a huge problem in the making.
So FDIC, which you mentioned, insures deposits up to $250,000. Yet 94% of the deposits at Silicon Valley Bank were in excess of that, and some of them far in excess of that. And Biden is making all the depositors whole. Right. Now, a lot of these depositors are also big Democratic supporters.
Right.
Are you suspicious here that this is looking after the people who have been good to you?
It's hard not to be suspicious. If you look at just what's happening there and relative to other banks around the country and what they have in terms of insured versus uninsured deposits, this bank you knew was running up huge amounts. This is totally out of whack. It's usually 80-20 the other way. And what you had in this circumstance is a lot of really large people, or large, I should say, people with large bank accounts who should know better. They know when they're putting money in the bank, they're only covered up to $250,000. Well, you assume a certain amount of risk with that. So what Biden is saying is that we're going to assess fees on everybody else around the country to cover the deposits of these uninsured depositors. And I think the American people are going to have some hard questions about that. And I think they need to answer the hard questions when they come in front of the relevant committees. Because she said today there would be no bailout by the taxpayers. I asked her the question. She flatly said no bailout, and we will adhere to that. This sounds an awfully lot like a bailout.
Yeah, it certainly does. And Mohammed Al-Arian is making the point now that they've bailed out SVB, so if another bank goes down, they've set the precedent that you got to bail them all out. I want to ask you about something else that's an issue that's very prominent on your plate, and that's TikTok. The Biden administration is sending a message to ByteDance, which is the Chinese parent company of TikTok: sell TikTok, or you risk being banned in this country. What do you think of that ultimatum?
Well, I actually think that makes sense, and I think that's based upon good information, good intelligence, and I think but it's probably not enough. I think we're going to have to continue to examine, review, and perhaps take further action with respect to TikTok. And it's very possible that TikTok will challenge this. They did previously in the Trump administration. The Trump administration tried to ban TikTok, and they went to court and won. And so if they are successful legally, we need to have a better process in place. And so I've got a piece of legislation I've been working on, a lot of Republicans and Democrats on board with it, that basically creates a rules-based process whereby these types of technologies and platforms can each be reviewed to determine whether or not they represent a national security risk. And I think those are, and whether or not that platform needs to be blocked, whether or not there needs to be mitigation measures. But I think that process is an important one, not just for TikTok, but for other types of apps and technologies that continue to come into this country.
Karine Jean-Pierre was talking about that. You've got the full support of the White House, you and Senator Warner, on that. TikTok's response to all of this came from spokesperson Maureen Shanahan, who told Fox Business, quote, if protecting national security is the objective, divestment doesn't solve the problem. A change in ownership would not impose any new restrictions on data flows or access. The suggestion there being you can sell TikTok to whoever you want or force ByteDance to do it, but the data is still going to be flowing somewhere.
Well, and that's the argument in a free market economy. It's really hard, to pierce if they create some sort of a corporate shield where they sell it to another company. And I think the information, I think what most importantly comes out of this is the American people, when they use these apps, particularly those that are owned or partially owned by Chinese and the Chinese Communist Party in this case, they need to be vigilant. And know if you're going to be on an app like this that your information, a lot of your data is very well being stolen. I think that's a start there, and then we've got to do our part to do everything we can to get the information intelligence, and if we need to move forward with banning or blocking.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day, you and I. If you're a parent, just say no.
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
It's an easy thing to do, although you do get a lot of blowback.
I was going to say, that's not going to be an easy, it's not an easy thing when you're a parent.
You've got to stand your ground.
Yes, indeed.
Right. Senator Thune, good to talk to you.
Said.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate it.